75% of the world using the new digital yuan. You got the two biggest OPEC producing countries in the world agreeing to sell their oil for yuan, and those yuan payments for oil are backed by gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. Whatever new global monetary system rises, whatever it looks like, I think it will be dominated by countries like Russia and China and Saudi Arabia and India, who will use commodity-backed resources, gold or oil or whatever it may be, to peg itself to a new standard, compared to the West, who has the infinite fiat printing, debt-based system that is, I think, coming to an end very rapidly. The article that was that has created a lot of buzz was one that was written in a Russian newspaper, and it was translated. It basically said that the Russian government was interested in pegging the ruble to gold and a basket of other commodities. And simple equation of pegging the ruble to gold is basically what everyone took away from it. And, quite frankly, I think it is, whether it's early or whether it happens now with the ruble, I think ultimately it will be the fate of a new world reserve currency. So much so that you had Fed Chairman Powell come out recently and talk about there being room for more than one world reserve currency. I truly do believe the only way that the world will ever accept a new currency or a new system is to peg it to gold. And I think this is going to be a deal that isn't going to happen slowly over time. It's not going to be a slow transition or slow accumulation. I think it'll manifest all at once. And I've been saying that for quite some time. I ask people all the time, what makes the dollar the world reserve currency? And it's startling to me. No one really ever gets the answer right. Very few people do. I asked that question to several people I talked to today. Do you know what makes the dollar the world reserve currency? And the answers range the whole gambit. It used to be that we were backed by gold, as everyone knows. Nixon closed the gold window in 1971, and it was rendered fiat for 3 years until Kissinger went to Saudi Arabia and struck a deal with the Saudis to protect them, to a joint military cooperation arrangement, to provide them with munitions and support militarily. For that, they would denominate oil globally in dollars. And I have been screaming from the rooftops since September of 2021. The day we left Afghanistan was the beginning of the end for the US dollar as the singular world reserve currency. Because the day after that, Russia, as we've talked about, struck a deal with Saudi Arabia and the next day with Nigeria to protect them. They called it a joint military cooperation agreement. For the first time in nearly 50 years, someone else is protecting the Saudis or joining in on the protection, the bodyguard, if you will, who has nuclear weapons. And the day after they struck the deal with Nigeria, as I've talked about, they announced the hypersonic ICBMs, that they have them in their nuclear powered submarines. The State Department came out quickly after and said, we're concerned about this. This is a technology we don't have. But that was their way of saying, don't think about doing to us what you did to Saddam Hussein and to Gaddafi for threatening to sell their oil in another currency. But this has gone much further. And now you see these deals being struck. Nigeria agreeing to sell their oil for yuan, Saudi Arabia and China in these deep conversations. As far as I'm concerned, that deal's been struck as well. You're seeing unilateral deals all around the BRICS nations usurping the dollar. And let's not forget that when you talk about what's happened with the Chinese the digital yuan that I've talked about, kind of backstopping the new Chinese Belt Road Initiative. CNN, can't even believe I'm saying this. A good friend of mine sent me an article, and it was interesting. CNN quoted that in the second half of 2021, $8 billion worth of transactions had already transpired under the new Chinese digital yuan. Now, take a step back. You got the Chinese Belt Road Initiative connecting 75% of human population. These are all things we have discussed ad nauseum on your show. 75% of the world using the new digital yuan. You got the two biggest OPEC producing countries in the world agreeing to sell their oil for yuan, and those yuan payments for oil are backed by gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. They are redeemable and convertible into gold immediately on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. It's called the Chinese Petro Yuan Bond. So you have 3/4 of human population being indoctrinated into a new currency. You have the linchpin of the dollar hegemony, the petro reserve status in the countries that have implemented it, already agreeing to transition away from singular dollar status into other currencies for oil. It's the beginning of the end. It's a transition that will happen very, very quickly. I believe we will wake up one day to a new reality. And when so few people understand what it is that gives the dollar its hegemony, its status as the world reserve currency, and yet even fewer people understand that that status is in question, and is actually transitioning right away from us, right before our eyes. It is frightening to me. It will catch many, many people, more people than it won't. Almost everybody will be caught off guard when this transition happens. And so, yeah, I think the inevitability of this, whether it happened, whether, look, there's infighting in Russia. You got one of the head, in fact, I have what he was called here. The gentleman, Nikolai Patrushev, is the secretary of the Russian Federation Security Council. He says this is going to happen. And you got someone else in the Kremlin saying, well, no, we're really not going to do it. The bottom line is the genie's been let out of the bottle. And whether Russia is the one that initiates the backing of a currency with gold, or it's a joint effort, which I believe it will be with the BRICS nations, with a currency like the digital yuan, which will be rolled out to 3/4 of human population. And what better technology but a distributed ledger to use the veracity, or to show the immutability or the veracity of all of this gold that China and Russia and India and South Africa and Brazil and all of these countries have accumulated